reader, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now, let's get one thing clear. You and I, bookworm to bookworm, we are broke. And that's because we keep on spending money on books. Do we think about all the books that are on our TBR? No. Do we care that they're giving us the death stare? No. Do we stop buying books? No. So that's why I brought to you this very own segment of mine where I'm going to talk about all the books you can get below 100 rupees. However, disclaimer, it's going to be genre specific because I love to watch recommendations pertinent to one genre. It gets easier for me to buy them. Also, a little note, I'm going to be sharing all the links below in the description, and the editions that I will be showing you for the classics genre will not be the same as the one you will purchase for 100 rupees or less. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 9, The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Now this is by the author who is a Lebanese and an American poet as well as a sculptor, and this book contains 26 short prose and poems, and they delve into every aspect of human life from clothing to drinking and etc. The reason why people love this book so much is because of the spiritual spin it takes on every aspect of human life, and I really hope you will love this book because it's one of my favorites. Number 8, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by R.S. Stevenson. Now we're all familiar with R.S. Stevenson from our schooling days, but this book is a bit adult and very complicated. It follows our main character Dr. Jakai, who is having a conversation with his old friend Mr. Utterson when he recounts his episode when he met Mr. Hyde, who has a nasty character. However, Mr. Hyde and Dr. Jakai have some link to each other. To know that link, you need to read the story. And I can tell you that it is a very thrilling read. It's absolutely scintillating, and the ending is beyond anticipation. I love this book even though my mom spilled the beans on it, but it's all forgiven. Water under the bridge. It's okay, mommy. But definitely go for it. Number 7, 1984 by George Orwell. Now, ironically, this book was written in 1948 as a premonition for what the future holds. It was a warning that was set due to the advent of totalitarianism and regimes. It was written at a very critical point in history with the rise of Hitler, Stalin and Mussolini. This book talks about the dawn of post-atomic stage when people came to realize the annihilation and the power the human mind is capable of. One thing I can say is the introduction is the passage to modern dystopic literature, and one should definitely read. It's rich in vocabulary, it's rich in knowledge. Even though it's fiction, I would say it's a beautiful and a moving story. So definitely go for this one also. Number 6, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Now this book follows the story of Victor Frankenstein, who has created a creation beyond his force and power to control, and thus rejects it. This botched creation, upon rejection and abandonment, sets out to destroy Frankenstein and all he holds dear. This book gave rise to sci-fi that we read today, and also is a timeless gothic, and what I can say about this book is that it's absolutely a masterpiece. Every single episode, every single chapter is going to it's going to captivate your attention, it's going to grasp you. It's one of the most scintillating books I have read in classics. So definitely give this a try. Number 5, Animal Farm by George Orwell. Now this is the book that I read by the same author before than the latter, and this is an absolute breathtaking book. It's going to demand attention from you. So this follows the story of some animals actually in an animal farm, and it's an it narrates the story beautifully. It's a satire, it is personified really well throughout the story, and it's such a slap on the society's face. It's a wake-up call for all those who are living in another world. It's a truth teller, and I love the tagline. It says, all animals are equal, but some are more than equal. This is such a raw truth of our society. For people who are delving into this genre of classics newly, I would definitely recommend this book more than the others because it's short, it's crisp, and The language is also very easy breezy. The whole story is very lucid, and it's going to give a very powerful impact. So definitely go for this one because it was one of my beginnings. Number 4, Heidi by Johanna Spyri. Now before I talk about the book, a huge shout out to my boyfriend for gifting me this book in the Buffett Classics edition, which is gorgeous. However, a little note, no, you won't be getting the same edition as cheap as $100. But the story will be the same, that's what I can promise you. Now this book follows the story of Heidi, who's living with her grandfather after her parents' demise, and the whole story is the account of her life from her eyes, which is nothing less than pure, innocent, simple and sophisticated. This book was a roller coaster ride for me. I read this in one sitting and I remember smiling, laughing and crying because the book is from a little girl's perspective. You would know it's going to be nothing less than beautiful, raw and emotional. I loved how simple this book was, and I loved how refreshing it was for me. It's a very short book, but it's a very impactful book, even though given its simplicity. Definitely go for this one if you want to look for something like that. Number 3, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Now this book is a tragic yet epic love story between Catherine and Heathcliff, which takes place in the moors of Yorkshire, England. Now this book, I remember, it was consuming so much from me when I started reading it, but as I went midway, I remember I was just so attached to the characters. I was feeling so sorry for Heathcliff, but then his character changed and the whole demeanor took, it started resembling the wilderness that he had. The whole story kept on surprising me at intervals. I loved this book. It was so powerful, and it also has snippets of something ghostly and ghastly. That's why it's going to be a little eerie when you read it, because it is a gothic novel, and Emily Bronte probably was one of the first to introduce this idea of gothic novels, and this is her only novel. And I can say one thing, that her imagination in this one was so powerful that by the end I was happy that I read it, but I was so sad that I finished it. Number 2, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Wilde. Now this book follows the story of Dorian Gray, who is absolutely breathtaking. His beauty is godlike. However, he doesn't know this, but people seem to notice, and so did Mr. Lord, who took it upon his stride to inform him, and thus sowed the seed of hedonism. From there, the story takes on another level, and it just gets better and better. This is a gothic novel, and I remember I read this quite a few years ago, and I was so captivated by how manipulative this book was, how immoral this book was. It's filled with deception, filled with egoism, and so much of spiritual putrefaction. This is a different level of a book, because this is one of my favorite books. I remember I was so attached to this book, and I'm still attached to this book, and I want to reread this. If you want to read something very dark, go for this. I love this. I'm recommending a very dark book to you. Yes, read this. And the winner is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. The beautiful, the wonderful, the masterpiece, the artwork in front of you. This is one of the most spectacular books I've read, and it's a tradition for me to read this book over and over again every year. I've probably read it like 8 or 9 times. I've lost count. And I sometimes even read more than once in a year because I love this book so much. I love the culture of this book. I love how it transports me back to its time. I love to read in their language, in their accent, Mr. Bingley, Mr. Darcy. I love everything about this book, okay? And also, you're not going to get the same edition for 100 rupees or less, but you're going to get this book. It's beautiful, it's brilliant. I love this book. I think I haven't read this book this year. I am going to pick it up very soon. I love how this turned out to be so amazing with this thing in my hand at last. And that's a wrap. Those were all the books that I wanted to talk about in this episode. And those are all the classics that I want to talk about, which are below 100. The links again are in the description below. Do check them out if you like any of the books and you want to read. And that's it for today. Stay happy, stay blessed, and do not forget, like, comment, share, subscribe, comment something nice. I would love to reply, and definitely do not forget to subscribe to my channel. Bye.